When we would cultivate a crop at Terre, we were very often lost to manage disease. We didn't know what to do and how to deal with them. Maybe we saw some symptoms, but we could not each time identify disease because we didn't have the knowledge, and there are very few experts that can help us. At least in Belgium, I couldn't find anyone to help me. So we were in a kind of unclear situation. So I thought we need information and we need to test something. That's how I thought I will write something on it.
Welcome to episode 67 of the Seed Farmer Podcast. The podcast where I want you to harvest seeds from some of the vegetables and flowers growing in your farm or garden, and then to plant that seed out to grow delicious vegetables and beautiful flowers. If you enjoy the Seed Farmer Podcast and find it to be a good resource that helps you improve your seed work and farming, please support the show at spreadsheet.farm/support podcast. I'm your host, Dan Brisebois, seed grower at Tournesol Cooperative Farm and author of The Seed Farmer, a complete guide to growing, using, and selling your own seeds. Today we're going over the Atlantic Ocean for our seed interview, but first, a couple news points. The first thing I want to mention is a blog post I just read this morning by the Laid Back Gardener, and it's about the Seed Farmer, my book, being the Bibliothèque et Archives Nationales du Québec Gardening Book of the Month. So that's the Quebec National Archives and Library. It's their Gardening Book of the Month. And I was thrilled to see that. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but I think it's a really glorious honor, and probably a reason if you haven't read Seed Farmer, you should go get it, and it might be at your library, especially if you're in Quebec, which is actually, it's in Montreal, the library, but in the province of Quebec. Anyway, the other update is that my Harvest System Designs course is still 50% off if you use the promo code HarvestReady. You can do that up until May 30th, so dial your Harvest Systems in for your farm. You can register at spreadsheet.farm/courses, and just a heads up that this course is not a seed-specific harvest design course, but a market farm design course. So it's good for market vegetables, it's good for cut flowers, and also if you are a seed farm, you'll find that this course helps you design a larger harvest system for your farm. The course was originally given live and it's about an hour and a half, and the link is in the show notes. And now, let's get into today's conversation. Fanny Lebrun is this episode's guest. Fanny is the driving force behind Les Marequiers, a Belgian nonprofit dedicated to regional food autonomy. Through their flagship program, Semences, which translates to Seeds from Here, Fanny works to strengthen the local organic seed sector. Prior to that, Fanny started the seed company Cycle en Terre by herself, then built it into a citizen-owned seed cooperative. In this episode, Fanny shares the logistics and challenges of scaling a seed business from a one-person operation to a 10-person team. We discuss Fanny's transition into Les Marequiers and how she's trying to bridge the information gap from academic research to the practical realities of the farm. We also talk about the organic disease and pest management guide she's recently written. In the deep dive, Fanny and I talk about growing carrots for seed. We get into the difficulties of growing seed carrots in humid, short-season climates, covering overwintered roots in a simple cellar, and how to balance the harvest of primary and secondary umbels. Enjoy the conversation. Hi, Fanny. Welcome to the Seed Farmer Podcast.
Hi, Dan. Thank you to invite me.
It's a pleasure to be talking to you in person. I have been reading your interventions in the Seed Worker Organizing listserv for a bit, so it's fun to actually see a person and not just an email. I wanted you to come on in part because I recently saw that you wrote a French guide about disease management in seeds, and we'll talk about that. But as I started to read a little bit more, I saw that you have a lot of a larger history doing seed work. Do you want to tell us a bit about your seed story, how you got interested in seeds, and then what you've done in the seed world?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much to contact me because yeah, I wrote a lot of your documents and it's great. So I'm a bit shy, but very happy to be here. Well, my experience is that when I was 18, I went to Australia and I met a guy there. He was around 70 years old. He was called Peter Coxhead, and he was afraid of a lake of oil. And then he got prepared and he wanted to be sustainable and to find ways to live on the side of the society. And so we spoke a lot about seeds. And that's where I thought, this is very important to have seeds to get food. Um, so that's the beginning of my story.
Had you gardened or farmed or anything before that? Or even thought about seeds? Did this just suddenly, talking to this person, Peter, suddenly sparked these thoughts?
Almost not. There is only one thing I remember is that I tasted nasturtium. I tasted and I thought, I've tasted it before in my mother's garden, but it's the only thing that I recognized.
But it brought a connection to the past.
Yeah.
And from there, you ultimately have wound up to be running a seed company. How did you go from learning about the importance of seeds? What was your journey from that moment through to your seed work?
I was very young when I was there, and I came back to Belgium, feeling too unexperimented to find a job. So I searched for studies, and I studied agronomy. I thought I would learn to produce seeds and to preserve food, but it was not that,
That wasn't the focus at university.
not at all. So yeah, then I finished my studies and I got my first little girl. She's called Janet. And I thought, I have a child now. I really need to be sustainable and to do something for the future of my child. And so, yeah, this was the point. I thought, okay, I really need to make seeds. I will do it. I started then from the scratch a seed society that is called Cyclanterre.
So, cyclanterre, can you tell us what that might mean in English?
It's a cycle on Earth.
Like earth cycles?
Yeah, I think everything should be linked, and I find it a lot of sense in it. But it's also the name of a plant in French, but I don't know how to call it in English.
So, you're talking about Cyclanthera pedata? I think that's how it's pronounced, which is also called achocha. So, I've grown it only once. It almost looks like milkweed, like Sclepias. It's a cucurbit that's long and a little bit hard.
Yes, and I think this plant is very nice because it's very kind of wild. I like how it looks like. So yeah, I found it funny to link the French name and cycle all together.
When you started Cyclanterre, did you start off right away growing seeds?
There was 1 year transition to get the first seed. So I began in 2014 cultivating plants. And during the winter, I harvested seeds. And I was very lucky to find many volunteers to help me packing the seeds and testing them before. So yes, the first year it was I had only seeds from the first year, so no carrots, no bisannual plants, and then yeah, it went on.
Was this an ambitious project, you would say, to jump in and grow a bunch of seed crops, or were you feeling pretty confident about it?
I felt very confident because I wanted to do it, and when I want to do something, I do all my best, and it can work. I know it. But people around me all together told me I was crazy and shouldn't do it. So the first year I stopped talking about it. I just made seeds without talking. And when I harvested seeds, then I said, that I had seeds, and then many volunteers arrived all together.
From what I understand, the European Union has somewhat strict seed regulations. Was this a challenge for the selling part of the seed?
It was not a challenge because I'm in Belgium and in the French speaking part of Belgium. And here, regulation was not a challenge because people who check the regulation understand the problems and they could adapt to us and make a kind of balance that make it work. So the regulation was not a problem. However, there were many problems because packing the seeds, testing the seeds, selling the seeds, it's all different activities that were very difficult to manage all together with no knowledge at the beginning.
So you had to learn everything, not just growing seed, but also all the marketing part of it and the warehouse work and the order fulfillment. Within a couple of years, you turned this from a one-person show into a cooperative. Can you tell us a bit about that growing phase to come to a point where it was a co-op?
Yes, of course, it was crazy, really crazy. During something like 6 years, every year we sold more and more seeds. It was really growing sales, and people would be very interested, but there was no money to buy machines. At the beginning, I did everything by hand, and so it was very time consuming. Then I tried to meet people to help me invest in machines, and that's how I met two guys, Damien and Bruno, and invested in the society. Then for that we needed to create a society and decided to make it cooperative. It was a citizen-owned cooperative because I wanted many people to be there and to say what they want for seeds. I didn't want a one person decision seed company.
So when you say a citizen owned, that's the clients, are the clients the citizens, or is like I know there's different types of co-op. Like we're a worker co-op on our farm. So the workers own the business. But you can also have a co-op that is the consumers buy in, and then you can have producer co-op. And then there's solidarity co-ops here where it's a mix of the users and the owners. Where in this spectrum would a citizen co-op fit?
I would say it's a mixed system where anyone who wants can be owner. So even someone who is not using seeds can be owner also. There were 300 person owning the cooperative.
Wow, 300. That was 300 members that you got. And were you structured with a board of directors supervising everything?
Yeah, there were 5 person in the board of directors. Yeah.
And in terms of the actual seed production and the seed business management, how many folks were working with that? And were the co op members?
In 2020, we were 10 person working, and the volunteer were not working anymore at that time because it was a bit difficult to make them work in the system where we were. They had not enough knowledge to fit in it.
And by this time, so 2020, it's 6 years in. How much of the seed were you growing? Were there other growers that you were buying in from? Like, where was the seed coming from?
40% of the seeds were produced in Belgium, and 60% came from Germany, and the Netherlands, and Switzerland. And in the among the seeds coming from Belgium, a big part was produced in our sites by 2 people working in the team, and another part came from something like 10 producers that who live in Belgium and wanted to make seeds.
Your time with Cyclanterre lasted about 10 years. How did you transition out of Cyclanterre?
That's a big story for me because when I began the activity, I was really focused on it. I invested all my energy in it and I finished exhausted. especially in 2019 and 20, because at that time I had two children within 1 year. That was very difficult. And it was at the time of the COVID crisis where our sales really grew a lot. So altogether, it was too much. And after the COVID crisis, the sales did decrease. But we were 10 persons to be paid in the enterprise, so we had a problem because we couldn't make the sales increase again. So that was too much for me. I was exhausted and couldn't find any solution. So 3 years ago, I said I didn't want to do it anymore.
So Cyclanterre is still running, though, even now.
The brand has been sold at that time to another seed society called Semences. So the brand still exists, but the cooperative has disappeared at that time. I think there were too much difficulties if I leave the society, and then it couldn't work anymore.
So it sounds like with Cyclanterre, you learned a lot, probably agronomically, you learned a lot business-wise, and you learned a lot about the world. When you left Cyclanterre, from what I'm gathering, you were still interested in seeds, and now you have a new project, Les Marequiers. Can you tell us about Les Marequiers?
So when I left Cyclanterre, I had the great chance to win a grant for a project. And the project was to help producer making seeds locally. I had many questions when I was working in Cyclanterre and couldn't find the time to get the answers. And so I was very happy to take time to find answers to all my questions. The grants would allow me that, so that was very nice. And the project is called Semences.
So Semences d'ici is seeds from here, or local seeds.
Yes, right. Semences has two parts. A part on that aims to help producer get more information on seed production, and another part that would help people breed new varieties in Belgium, because this is an activity that is not much done anymore, and I thought this is very important also.
Well, this is really exciting. So you learn so much when you're running a seed company, but for sure there are so many more questions that you have. And some of us, like, I guess I started a podcast to talk to people so I could learn new things. And you've started a project to do deeper research and to encourage seed production. What are the type of projects that you've been doing with Semences d'ici? And I know there's a guide that we're going to talk about in an instant. Are there other projects also that you've been doing with this organization?
We are some partners, so I'm not the only one. I'm working with research centers here in Belgium and one university also. And we all write reports, find information, and make it available. So that's the only one activity.
What kind of reports have you put forward so far?
There is one interesting report I've done on seed coating. I think seed coating uh, gives a very high added value to seeds, and it's easy to do it with very small investment in some way. And I wanted to make the information available for small seed companies. So one report is on seed coating.
While we're talking, I just went on the website, and I know this is an English podcast, but it's there, L'enrobage des semences. I'm looking forward to reading it after this conversation. If somebody does use Google Translate, they can probably get broad information from it.
I'm sure the broad information will be accessible, and yeah, it's a pity it's not in English, of course. There are other information. For instance, I worked on some species like tomatoes, lettuce, zucchini, and I gave a great attention to add all the yields we had in Cyclanterre, because I think it's a data we don't find so much. And yes, I found it then yields on your website, and I Thank you so much for this information. So I think those years are in my reports also. I cited you.
Well, thank you very much. And anybody who's in Belgium should maybe just take the data with a touch of just interpretation for local conditions.
Can vary so much that I think as many data you can have an idea of how it can vary.
It's good to have ideas about yields and timing and that kind of thing just to start off, and then you can figure out your local information that's more precise. But at least having somewhere to begin, I understand that, and that's one of the reasons I've shared a lot of that on the blog or in my book, just because I've been wanting that information too. So I know others do. Actually, now that I'm looking at your site, there's a lot of guides that look really exciting. So the one that came to my attention was called, it's in French, it's Gestion des bioagresseurs en production de semences potagères biologiques, but it's management of diseases and pests in organic seed production. It's really exciting to see this and to read through it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what was the motivation to write this specific guide?
When we would cultivate a crop at Terre, we were very often lost to manage disease. We didn't know what to do and how to deal with them. Maybe we saw some symptoms, but we could not each time identify disease because we didn't have the knowledge, and there are very few experts that can help us. At least in Belgium, I couldn't find anyone to help me. So we were in a kind of unclear situation. For me, seed quality is very important because I want the customer to be happy, but we couldn't be sure we had good quality seeds concerning disease. So I thought we need information and we need to test something. That's how I thought I will write something on it. And I tried to make something comprehensive that takes into account the culture and the seed, until the seed treatment at the end, because we can find information on the culture generally, but not focused on seeds. And yeah, I tried to get something comprehensive.
Did you get this information from other seed companies that maybe were doing more research? Did you get this from academic sources? Where did you go and find this information?
When I was in Terre, I visited many seed enterprises because I needed information to pack the seeds to for every step of seed production and yeah and selling. So I visited Bingenheimer at that time, and they gave me many information. At least I could take picture and get a broad overview of what they do. This was very interesting and I couldn't share it. So writing a report on it gave me the opportunity to share the picture and the thing I heard there. But it was not enough. So I read many documents on it. And what is very interesting, I think, in the report I made is at the end of it, I give a list of all sources of information I find interesting. So if someone wants to go further, it's possible to get an overview of the existing resources.
And some of those resources are in English. If folks want to just get your guide and then look at the annex and then look for things that they might be able to read without having to translate the main text, that'll already be a starting point for them. Was there any big aha moments that came to you when you were writing this guide about any part of seeds, approaches, or is anything that really struck you and you thought, oh, I really wish I'd known this when I was running a seed company?
Well, I found many very interesting resources that I would have loved to read at that time. And I needed for that to get time and to get the link to those resources. And I had none of them. So now I'm bringing the links to it, but I think there is a big problem when you are in a seed business is that you often lack time to find the information you really need. And that's to read and to understand and to apply the information. Yes, so that's a bit of a pity. And I think that to go further now, maybe it would be interesting to test process and to support producers straight in their work. So it would be interesting to have someone who can quickly answer and quickly help producers, but without being costly for them.
The guide starts off by introducing the types of pests and diseases, and then talks about kind of the continuum. From the second part is the continuum from the field to the seed and the seed to the field, and then gets into kind of the reality of doing this work on a small business. Is there any specific part of that that you'd like to talk about more than others in the guide and tell us a bit about?
I would like to, yeah, I think seed treatments is something very interesting that can be done at very small scale. But for that, in order not to lose time, the people who will do it need to have very straight information because it's a kind of trials and error process method. So if you want to make it, you will try, fail, try, evaluate, fail, and then eventually you will find a solution. In order to reduce those trials, it's very important to get strong information from the basis. And I think it would be possible to help small seed society to do seed treatments if they know much better what to do.
So, accurate information is important. You have to know what the right temperatures are, the right treatments, and how to test. Otherwise, you're wasting your time, and we don't have time to waste.
Yeah, and information is sometimes we find information on one website and another information on another website, but there is not something very comprehensive who takes all the website all together.
Is there any last thing you want to tell us about the guide before we pivot the conversation?
Yeah, the challenge is to try to get good quality seeds, but don't get crazy about it. And it's not easy to find a place between big seed society who can afford big laboratory and guarantee very good quality seeds and smaller company who don't have much means and have to deal with that at a very small scale. And that's a bit of a challenge. Yeah, we should take care of that because in our world, big company can afford big treatments and small one can't much afford anything. And so the gap is very big.
If you're already a seed farmer, or even just thinking about harvesting seed from your plants for the first time, head over to seedgrowers.farm for my free seed grower resources. There is cross-pollination information, seed yield information, even a few seed spreadsheets. There's also a list of my favorite seed books and podcasts. While you're there, you can also sign up for my weekly newsletter to get seed grower tips and stories straight into your inbox. So head to seedgrowers.farm for my seed grower resources. Now, back to the show. For the deep dive, you've suggested that we could talk about carrots. Why would you like to talk about carrots? What appeals to you about growing carrots for seed?
Well, maybe there are two reasons. The first reason is that there is a variety that's called a yellow giant Belgium, which is a variety that comes from Belgium initially, but that went to the US and came back after to Belgium. And one colleague of mine tries to get this variety better. So it's a yellow carrot and he tastes them and does some breeding on them to make the variety evolve. And that's a nice story. The second reason why I think it's interesting to talk about carrots is that I love them. However, they are difficult to produce in Belgium because we don't have the perfect climate here to do them. It's a bit too wet, not dry and not hot enough, at least at the end of the season. And so it's a bit risky and we have to find solution to get them ripe and in a good quality, to harvest them in a good quality.
So your climate is humid, and I think our climate is humid too, so I can relate to that. How warm is the weather that you're talking about not being as warm as you'd like it to be for carrots?
Yeah, during the summer, the day temperature may be from, well, 15, 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. So it's enough, but it's a bit wet, and the temperature will decrease quite quickly in September. And maybe the seeds are not ready enough at that time. The season is very short because it can freeze until May 15 and it can freeze from maybe end of September. So it's a very short season.
And that sounds a lot like where we are, the season you're talking about, and some of the temperature fluctuations. So that excites me. So carrots are a biennial. And do you want to talk about growing carrots for seed and some of the steps that you would do?
Yeah, we do put the seeds in the soil in July. That's to launch, to begin the culture. And we will harvest the carrots, the roots, in end of September or October. We can't leave them in the soil because sometimes it's freezing a bit too much, and also because of pests. Yeah, rodents. During the winter, there are many of them, so it's too risky to leave the roots in the soil. And then we will put the roots back in the soil. We will plant them in March.
How would you overwinter the roots? So you take them out of the ground. Where do you put them during the winter?
Well, what I did, because I had no full room special for that, so what we did is we put them in the cellar in boxes and keep them humid and checking. We checked that there were no rotten roots, and then it was very easy like this. We had no problems, and it didn't ask any investment, so it was perfect.
And then you'd plant them out in the spring?
Yeah, we planted them in the spring, but this is not easy because the soil is very wet. So we can walk on it, but it's not the best period. So this is a difficult step.
What time of year about? What date would you be targeting?
We wanted to do it in March, but usually it could be a bit later because we couldn't prepare the soil before. But the carrots, then they cry. They're not happy.
They're starting to get hairy and the plants are growing taller.
Yes, then they will grow, and there are different means to harvest the seeds. The seeds will be ready end of the summer. The easiest way, when it's at a very small scale, was to cut the umbels one after one, but it takes so much time that we cannot sell the seeds at a good price if we do like this. So we were looking for a solution, and that's how we thought maybe windrowing would be a good solution. However, it's not a very easy method to deal with. We lack information in Cyclanterre. So yeah, I was happy to read a bit about that and to understand that we can wait for the secondary umbels to cut the plant all together, to let it dry, maybe outside if you have a big culture or inside if you have a smaller crop.
With umbel plants, like in the umbel family, there's like a first umbel, that's the first flower. that comes at the beginning. And then a second wave would be the second umbels. That's what you're telling us about. So you're waiting to have both of them mature. What is the visual indicator that you're looking for to know when they'd be ready to harvest?
It's not easy to know if you can go or not. 80% of the umbels ready is a good idea, but the first umbels give very good seeds. The secondary umbels will give good seeds, but a bit less good, and all the following ones will be less good. So we tried not to lose the first umbels and to get as much as possible of the secondary one.
So that's the challenge, is if you wait too long, the seeds will fall off of the first umbel or start to shatter. So you're trying to balance between both of those, which sounds tricky.
Yes. Yeah.
And then, so for windrowing, how much of the plant are you cutting? And are you worried about there being third umbels or fourth umbels that might be immature at the same time?
Oh no, no, this is not a problem because they will stay on the plant, I think, and you can get them off after. So I would not be too worried. However, we try to cut as close as possible of the secondary umbels, but it's okay to get the other ones. If it is done with a machine, you cannot.
You can't separate them.
No, no. What is interesting with windrowing is that you can do a bigger culture and lower the manual work because this is too expensive here in Belgium. It's very expensive to pay people for their work. It's a pity, but it's a fact. And then as much as you can do with the machine, it's good.
So for windrowing, you're going in and you're using a secateur or a tool to cut the top part of the plant that has the first and second umbels. And then you would be spreading them on a tarp, on a piece of landscape fabric to windrow them.
Yeah, if you do a big culture, you can let them on the ground. But if you do a smaller culture, you really don't want to lose any seeds. And then what you can do is to put them in a jar. But what we used to do also is to use sheets because it's great. It's breathing. It helps plants to dry when you use that also when you lay down your harvest table.
How long do you let them sit as a windrow before processing them?
I would say something like 3 days is good. If they are dry, as soon as they are dry, you can process. An easy way to know if they are dry is to touch them, and if you will feel if they are dry. It's easy to feel.
So by touch, they kind of fall apart a little bit if they're dry?
Yeah, they will fall apart, and you feel it's harder than, yeah, it's breaking. Like you feel it will break.
And then how do you thresh the seed, or how do you extract the seed from the windrow?
We had a threshing machine. This is very useful, but if you don't have any, then you can just walk on the plant and do like movement with your feet on the plant.
A quiet dance?
Yeah, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, put some music and dance on it, and then the seed will get off the plant. The big problem with carrots is that the seeds are hairy. Because of the hair, they will stay all together in kind of a bunch of seeds. And that's not easy to deal with when you want to pack them or to sow them. There is one manual method, which is you put them in a sieve and you wrap them on the sieve with maybe with gloves because it's a bit.
It's going to cut you up and you're going to get splinters and not like it.
Yeah. However, the manual method is very long and it can take hours and hours. So if ever you can get access to a brushing machine, then it's much easier, much faster.
So you're in a climate similar to ours. One of the challenges in our climate sometimes is germination rates might not be as good as we'd like with carrots. Is germination rates a problem for you, or Is that not a challenge that you've had?
I think it was quite okay. I have read something about that. I think the time when you will harvest the seeds is very important. If you harvest too early, then it will not work. And then there are all the disease problems, and maybe it is Alternaria. I'm not sure which one, but there is fungus that will make some problems in carrot seeds. And then maybe it's interesting to test for that also.
Well, thank you for walking us through windrowing carrots. Let's get into our wrap up questions. So, what would you tell your younger seed growing self?
I would tell, if you want to make seeds, do it because it's really great. When you harvest seeds, you feel so amazed. It's nice. I would say also, go slowly. Don't try to make thousands of varieties the same year for the first time. Maybe one variety, two varieties is good for the beginning, for the very first year, because I've seen many farmers who grew vegetables and wanted to make plenty of seeds at once, but then during the season they are lost between all the things they have to do and they forget the seeds. And end of the season they are very disappointed because they lost plenty of harvest. So maybe focused on something realistic at the beginning.
Not always easy when you're feeling ambitious. What would you say to market growers to inspire them to start growing seed?
I would say begin slowly also. That's what.
Do you think they should grow seeds?
Yes, I think anyone who can make seeds should make seeds because seeds are so necessary to feed ourselves. And when you make seeds, you understand all the work that is behind. You understand where they come from, what needs to be done, and that is good to understand because otherwise you don't know. And if you don't know, you cannot help seeds being produced.
So it gives you a deeper understanding of the whole system of agriculture.
Yes, and it's very rewarding to have seeds and to put your hands in it. So I would say do it.
Is there something I should have asked you?
Yeah, I when people asked me this question before, I did always say, if you feel you can do something, if you love like something, if you want to do something, then do it. So if you want to make seeds, do it. Today I would also say that, but I would also say, maybe take the time always to take a step back to evaluate if you do it well, if you are happy to do it, and if you can improve something. Because if you don't really know if you are happy or anything, then maybe you should change something. I think when you have fun, you much more powerful, and we should remember that always.
How can people find out more about what you're doing?
You can go on Les Marequiers website, but maybe we need to write it because it's a very strange word.
I'll include all the links in the show notes, so people can just go to the show notes for the podcast or on YouTube, wherever they are, and click through.
Yeah. If you have any question, you can, of course, contact me. My address is there on the website.
Well, thank you, Fanny. Merci beaucoup for having come on and talk to us all about your journey and the seed guide. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and it's a great pleasure to meet you. I'm very happy because I read your books, I read everything, and thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure. And have a great growing season.
Thank you.
And that's episode 67 of the Seed Farmer Podcast. Thank you, Fanny, for being on the podcast. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the guides you have on the Marequiers website. Thank you to Sophia Sedelten for the theme music. You can hear more of their music at sophiasedelten.com. Thank you to Molly Brisebois for editing this episode. And thank you so much for joining me in these conversations with seed farmers. You can find more seed growing resources on my blog at seedgrowers.farm. While you're there, you can subscribe to a newsletter full of seed growing, crop planning, and farm spreadsheets. You can also find out where to order a copy of my book, The Seed Farmer, a complete guide to growing, using, and selling your own seed. And you can support the podcast at spreadsheet.farm/supportpodcast. If you haven't already subscribed, now's the time. You wouldn't want to miss the next episode. Until then, happy farming.